Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hello. This is a good crowd. This is good energy. I can feel good energy in the room. And lots of talkers. Hi, everybody. I'm Chuck Holmes. I'm the Executive Director of the Alabama Humanities Alliance, and it's wonderful to have you here today at the 2023 Alabama Colloquium. Through the year, one of the questions I get most about the work we do at the Alabama Humanities Alliance is, what the hell is a colloquium? As you all know, if you studied your high school Latin, it means fancy luncheon. We have waived this year the dress code of wearing a toga. No toga is necessary this year. Seriously, on behalf of our organization and our allies and our partners, I want to welcome you and thank you for being here as we recognize excellence in Alabama and from Alabama. Today, we bestow our highest honor on two natives of our state who have distinguished themselves nationally as leaders in defending democratic values and promoting racial justice. David Mathews and Imani are more than observers and writers. They are participants, and they want us to participate too. Their work compels us to think in new ways about the lives we lead and the more perfect union we seek. They are our 2023 Alabama Humanities Fellows. We give this recognition to people native to our state or to those who reside here for their lifelong commitment to the humanities and to the pursuit of a better world. They join the ranks of past fellows, including the likes of Harper Lee, E.O. Wilson, John Lewis, and Brian Stevenson. The selection of Dr. Mathews and Perry also fits nicely with a new initiative that our organization is launching and that you'll hear more about today. It's called the Healing History Initiative, and we're seeking to cultivate civil conversations and build relationships among Alabamians across things that divide us, and advance our ongoing mission to support lifelong learning, impactful storytelling, and exploration of the shared cultures and history of our state. We're also pleased that NPR's Priska Neely joins us to guide a conversation between our two newest fellows about their lives and work. Priska is a friend, and she's helping a fellow out. Because you may be aware that CNN's Caitlin Collins intended to be here to moderate our event, but the tragic events in the Middle East called her there. She was dispatched late last week as part of CNN's coverage of the war. But even on assignment, she took time to send us a brief message. I think.
Good morning, Alabama. This is Caitlin Collins from CNN. And let me start off by saying that I'm so sorry that you're seeing me via video right now and that I'm not there in person, as I was so looking forward to doing. I was really excited to moderate this year's colloquium. I thought we were going to have some very thought-provoking conversations. I'm sure those will still go on without me, but I was really excited to be there with all of you, to be back in my home state. I'm very grateful that everyone has been so understanding of why I couldn't be there. And for those of you who don't know, I was sent on assignment this week in Israel. Obviously, the news cycle calls, and we had to go and cover such an important story there on the ground. So thank you all for being so understanding of that. And I hope that I can all see you soon, and we will all be together in the same room to have those conversations. But now to the important work that is happening today, and to shout out to amazing people who were in the room. I want to recognize Dr. Imani and Dr. David Mathews, who are this year's Alabama Humanities Fellows, who have been doing such important work to not only explore our past, but to also see how that past can be used to bring communities together and having those really important conversations that I think are so vital for us. And being on assignment this week in Israel, just as a journalist, thinking of how important it is that we're there to tell those stories, kind of made me see this year's colloquium in a new light, to really understand how important the work that everyone in the room here is doing today to not only have those conversations, for humanities to tell those stories that we need to hear, but also the truth that we need to know. And I think the Alabama Humanities Alliance has done such important work with that. I think we need to keep having those conversations. I think it does a lot for the state of Alabama to bring Alabamians together, to bring communities together, and to continue moving forward with that. So I hope everyone in the room does take a moment today as you're having these conversations just to recognize how important that is and how much it really does make a difference. I'm so grateful that I was even thought of to moderate this. I was really looking forward to it, and I hope that we can do it again sometime soon. So I thank you all for this. I hope you have a great day. And of course, after that Tennessee win on Saturday, I have to leave y'all with a Roll Tide. Have a great one. Thank you all so much.
We got those dirty low-down snitches. Thank you, Caitlin, and our prayers and thoughts go out to everyone in harm's way in that part of the world. Following today's conversation, we've got more. We'll recognize some very special allies of the humanities in Alabama, and we'll unveil a new effort that you can join in to help our classroom teachers in our state and the growing expenses they face. Now, I'd like to introduce one of our event co-chairs, Jonathan Porter. Jonathan is Senior Vice President for Customer Operations at Alabama Power. We're grateful for Jonathan's participation in the Alabama Colloquium and his company's commitment to our work. Jonathan.
Good morning. Still 20 minutes before noon, so. Hey, but it is truly an honor, and I'm extremely humbled to be before you here today. Alabama Power is definitely committed to this organization and, of course, to our state. And I'm very humbled for the opportunity to provide today's invocation. And with all that is going on in the world today, here in our country as well as abroad, whether it's in Israel or Ukraine, we need to pray for peace and humanity. So let's do that. Let us pray. Please free our world from conflict. Bring unity to troubled nations. Let your glorious peace reign in every heart. Let peace fill our hearts, our world, and our universe. Let us dream together, pray together, and work together to build one world of peace and justice for all. Let us pray for humanity, that we may see ourselves clearly with curiosity, compassion, and courage. For we must evolve individually if we are to evolve collectively. Let us pray we learn what it means to really love ourselves first, because only then will we learn to love our neighbor and live in harmony. Let us pray that despite the grief, fear, and uncertainty about the future, that we find the integrity to face the challenges now through honest inquiry, meditation, and community. Give light to our eyes, hearing to our ears, and understanding and love to our hearts. Amen.
Thank you, Jonathan. A beautiful, beautiful blessing. We're going to take a break, and we're going to let you eat, I promise. But first, I need to say a few thank yous. We're so grateful for the community that supports our mission year-round, and today is no different. Thank you today to our presenting sponsors, Regions Bank, Medical Properties Trust, and Alabama Power, along with major sponsors in Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, the Porch Band of Creek Indians, Vulcan Materials Company, Coca-Cola United Bottling Company, Protective Life, the University of Alabama, and Viva Health. I'd also like to give a big, big thank you to AHA's Board of Directors for their collective efforts. I'm particularly thankful for our board chair, Ed Mizell, and our special events committee chair, Brett Schaefer, for their help in making today possible. And of course, I'm up here speaking to you, and I've had very little to do with the arranging of this event. My staff has worked incredibly hard on this event, and especially a big shout out to our Director of Communications, Philip Jordan. I want to note that every year we collaborate with an Alabama writer or artist to present our Alabama Humanities Fellows with a unique award. Last year, it was a poem by our state poet laureate, Ashley M. Jones. This year, it's a piece of art made out of Alabama red clay by Huntsville artist Johnny Moore. If you get a chance to see it, there's an example out in the lobby after the luncheon. And finally, thanks to all of you for buying tickets, for spreading the word about Alabama Humanities, and for being with us today. We're here for you, and we're here because of you. So enjoy your meals. We'll be back in a little bit to explain more about our Healing History Initiative, show a brief film, and then get into today's conversations. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. I told you I'd only give you a few minutes to eat, right? So I can't believe you guys aren't done yet. What's going on out there? While you eat, we're going to turn our attention to the fellows and the honors in just a moment, but I wanted to talk a little bit about our new initiative, Healing History. Some of you in attendance here participated in a morning workshop today related to this effort. In short, we're attempting through programs and partnerships to bridge divides and create conversations where they might not otherwise happen. Kathy Boswell is known to many of you in Birmingham for her community engagement roles in the World Games and with the Community Foundation of Greater Birmingham and lots of other stuff, if you know Kathy. She's leading point for us on this initiative. We've also been happy to support the work of the Wallace House in Shelby County. And if you're not familiar with that effort, you need to be. The Wallace House is a former plantation where the descendants of slaveholders and the descendants of the enslaved are working together. Kathy Boswell is going to come up to tell you more. Kathy?
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, those clinking plates, that's so cute. I love that sound. Keep eating, y'all. Keep eating. You know, I guess I want to start out by really talking about the fact that, you know, when you look at our world, our state, and communities, we all know that we feel the very deep divisions. And they divide as it is what it is, black and white, so very often. But at the same time, they also divide over politics, ethnicity, and religion. And these divisions keep us apart. They can make us feel scared, but they can also exasperate us and really make us want to throw up our arms. And many of those divisions can be traced back to generations and generations, but what we're doing is we're looking for a way to really encourage Alabamians to explore what our shared history looks like. And one of the best things about sharing history is being able to sit down and to be able to have those conversations and do it through love, first of all. Speak through the heart, learn through the heart. Speak through curiosity, learn through curiosity. Speak and learn through humility. But one of the best things is what we shared this morning is being able to share and learn through willingness. Because when you look at willingness, what willingness means is I've left all behind the doubt, the fear, the shame, the concerns. And what I'm willing to do is to have the courage to raise my hand and say, I'm in. And that is one of the greatest positions to be in, is that position of willingness, to be able to see change made. We're developing a set of workshops and experiences that will really help us to see how decisions in the past are still affecting us today. Because as much as we feel different things, I think the greatest question is, how did we get to where we are? And how do we move forward better? And the only way to do that is one person at a time, one heart at a time. As Chuck mentioned, one of our pilot partnerships has been with the Wallace House, and it's an honor to help further the importance and the brave and beautiful work that they're doing. Here is a short trailer to be able to convey just the start of even more to come. Thank you.
When we discovered our connection, I was excited about it. Because my family history was that my great-great-grandmother, she was freed. And we always wanted to know, why was she freed?
My name is Nell Gottlieb, and my great-great-grandfather was the slave owner who built this house in 1841.
I'm Patricia Bell, and I am a cousin of Theo's. We share a third great-grandfather.
We're living in a time when our nation wants to be divided. Do you heal from lying, or do you heal by telling the truth?
Again, that's the work at the Wallace House. I'd like to recognize Nell Gottlieb and Theangelo Perkins, who you saw in that video. Theangelo, yes, please. Theangelo is the mayor of Harpersville. Nell is, as she said in the film, a descendant of the homeowner. They together helped found the Wallace Center for Arts and Reconciliation, are doing amazing work, which we're happy to support. And we think it kind of embodies what we talk about when we talk about healing history. People sitting down and talking about their past in a disarming way that helps both sides understand what happened and how we go forward and move forward today. Also, thank you to Tyler Jones of 1504 for creating that beautiful trailer. It's part of a larger, longer film. And when I say longer film, not much longer, but we're going to send you all the link tomorrow, those of you who have given us your emails, so you can see that in full and learn more about the Wallace House. You can also visit our website to learn more about healing history and about the Wallace House. There are materials at your table to help you learn more about what we do, and in the lobby, and ways that you can participate and share and donate in this collective effort. Now to the main event. Healing history, building community, learning from the past, that's all of what we do. Much of it shapes our work, and it's time to celebrate two natives of Alabama for their impactful work and the truths they speak to make lives better. We're going to distribute the honors first and then begin the conversations. To introduce our fellows and to help us sort of do this, we're fortunate to have the help of two outstanding figures in our state. Both are women that you probably know and have heard about. They've distinguished themselves in so many ways. It would be foolhardy for me to try and list all their accomplishments. So seriously, there's a program at your table. You should pick it up and read about them if you don't know about them. And to get us started, we're going to start with a woman who most of you probably needs no introduction. The saying goes that if you're famous enough, you can go by one name, and everyone knows instantly who you're talking about. And here in Birmingham, that's the case with this woman, a civil rights icon, and a woman who's done so much for education and the humanities. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let Odessa Woolfolk take the mic, or as she's better known, Odessa. Odessa, you want to come down?
Thank you. I said I wasn't going to take the stairs, but I couldn't resist standing up here, looking at all of you. I want to give thanks to the Humanities Alliance for giving me this opportunity to welcome one of the two great people who will be honored today. I'm a longtime admirer of both Dr. Mathews and Dr. Perry, for they continue to challenge us all to examine what it means to be human. And my specific assignment is to introduce Imani Perry. I'll just call her Imani. I want to read something that the Alliance said about her. They said, "The humanities infuse everything that Imani Perry does. She is an interdisciplinary scholar, and her disciplines mirror what you find in the humanities. She explores history, literature, language, the arts, and the law. And writers and thinkers like Dr. Perry help us honestly and fully encounter our shared history so that we can address it, learn from it, know each other more fully, and hopefully treat each other with more empathy." End of quote. Now, from your program notes, you know about Dr. Perry's Birmingham connection, her academic and professional credentials, her honors and awards, including the highly coveted MacArthur Fellowship, which she won just a few weeks ago. And the good thing about it, it comes with a chunk of money. You know, Imani has always been on speed dial. According to a 2015 article published by Princeton, she appeared in a Birmingham newspaper at age 3 in a photo of a protest march against police brutality in, of all places, Birmingham, Alabama. But you may not know of her incredible disciplined work habits. Here are 2 brief examples. She received a PhD in American civilization and a law degree from Harvard at the same time. Also, she published 3 books in 1 year, 2018. And these weren't just little tablets. These were serious books. One was a biography of Lorraine Hansberry, a history of the Black national anthem, and a volume on gender and liberation. Now that's heavy lifting. All the while, she was writing, teaching, and raising 2 little adorable sons. My, makes you want to holler. I heard that somewhere. Though I had read some of her work, I did not meet Imani face-to-face until February of 2019 in Birmingham, when she was invited by an ad hoc committee for Truth and Reconciliation. This committee was formed to host a conversation with Dr. Davis, Angela Davis, and Imani was the questioner or the conversational leader. You may have heard about that event, but the group was multiracial, multicultural, ecumenical, and intergenerational right here in Birmingham, Alabama. The Fred L. Shuttlesworth Award was denied by the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute hastily, but it also was hastily re-offered. But what Imani did was to bring the group of people together with love, reconciliation, and healing remarks. That's Imani Perry. There's more. Dr. Perry began her studies at Princeton as a math major. As a scholar of literature and history, she looks for patterns and structure in her research and storytelling. Whether she's examining hip-hop, and she does examine hip-hop, in the context of politics, or examining the pervasive nature of racism, her approach is rigorous and incisive, fitting for a math major. She engages the readers both intellectually and emotionally, always with scholarship. Her descriptions can at times be raw and unvarnished, as in the book of letters to her boys. Her current book is attracting a lot of commentary for its argument that you must understand the South to understand America. You must understand the South to understand America. Her South is not one-dimensional. It's broad-based, diverse. She writes, "The South is America, and its history and influence cannot be dismissed as an embarrassing relative at the nation's holiday dinner table." I like that, Imani. Finally, Dr. Perry comments that writing can be a moral instrument if it asks us to do more than read. South to America should inspire its readers to do something for the betterment of America. Perhaps, in the words of the late Congressman John Lewis, there is a lot of good trouble, necessary trouble, to be had right here in Birmingham and in our country. Just a thought. And now, Imani, congratulations on this award, and please join us to accept this honor as a 2023 Alabama Humanities Fellow. All right, you wanna come?
Thank you, Odessa, and congratulations, Imani. Imani, we'll be getting you back on stage here in just a second for the conversation. We're so honored to have both of you here. Our next presenter is also well known to many in Alabama, particularly anyone associated with the University of Alabama. Can I get a roll tide? Thank you very much. Catherine Randall. Among her many, many, many accomplishments in business, academia, and public service, try this one out. She holds 5 degrees from the University of Alabama, 2 of them PhDs. She also went to school at Alabama when our next honoree was the president there, and she helped found what's now known as the David Mathews Center for Civic Life. Catherine, please join us.
There are so many of us in this room who can attest personally to how David Mathews has changed our lives. But let's look, for the very brief time I've been allotted, at how he has changed the world. He served as Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, the largest U.S. government department in the Ford administration. He served as president and CEO of the Kettering Foundation, advocating around the world for deliberative democracy. And yes, he served as the president of the University of Alabama. For these services, he has been recognized multiply, including as one of the 10 most outstanding young men in America. He's a member of the Alabama Academy of Honor. He has authored over a dozen books and has been honored with 17 honorary degrees. As a lasting tribute to his legacy, the Alabama Center for Civic Life was renamed the David Mathews Center for Civic Life. Today, David Mathews is receiving the highest humanities honor bestowed in the state of Alabama, because he sees, he acts, he inspires. He sees diverse communities, rich cultures, and fellow neighbors more clearly and with more empathy. He acts. He provides context that helps us better understand our past and our present. As an author, historian, university president, and CEO, his work brings people together and strengthens our civic life. He inspires. He challenges us to examine what it means to be human. His scholarship and public service in pursuit of community building and deliberative democracy represent the best of the humanities. Now, to those three verbs, may I add one more? Listen. David Mathews listens. He stresses the crucial importance of listening, and he shows us all how to listen. Oh, what a better world this would be if each of us, like David Mathews, listened, just listened. If we inspired others to examine what it means to be human and conducted that examination on ourselves. If we acted to better understand our past and our present. If we saw diverse communities, rich cultures, and our fellow neighbors more clearly and with more empathy. But I would be remiss if I left out one more verb, love. David loves most of all his family, his absolutely extraordinary wife, Mary, his wonderful daughters, sons-in-laws, grandchildren, and yes, great-grandchildren. We include them as we celebrate David Mathews, who, with their lifetime of support, uses the humanities to make our world a smarter, kinder, more vibrant place to live. David, God bless you, and thank you, thank you, thank you. Please join us to accept this honor as a 2023 Alabama Humanities Fellow, the highest humanities honor bestowed in the state of Alabama. David Mathews.
Thank you, Kathy, and congratulations, David. What great remarks. As I mentioned earlier, Imani, we're going to get you back on stage. You can come on up. Yes, thank you. And I'm also going to bring to the stage a really good friend and colleague, Priska Neely. Priska, come on up. Get out of your way. Next year, slimmer podium. Yeah, come on up. Thanks, Priska. You got it? Priska lives here in Birmingham, and she leads the Gulf States Newsroom. That's a collaboration of NPR and public radio stations in Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. It's based at our own WBHM. Priska has had a distinguished career at NPR, where we worked together there years ago, and she worked in public media in California for many years. She came to Birmingham in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of August, and I'm so happy she's with us here today, And Priska is going to lead a conversation. Thanks, Priska.
Is it okay if I steal this mic? I'm supposed to have it. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I am the replacement, as I've been telling people. Chuck called me last week, and he's like, are you in town? What are you doing on Monday? I was like, what is this? What is this line of questioning? But I'm really glad to be here and to facilitate a conversation between these wonderful people who have had a remarkable impact on the state and on the country, as we heard so much about earlier. I'll be honest, I was doing some cramming for this conversation, doing some studies, and I just was inspired to ask you all, what kind of students were you in college or, when you were studying? All-nighters, or did you have everything written ahead of time? Dr. Mathews, I'll start with you.
What kind of student was I?
Yeah. You probably get that question a lot, right?
Well, it takes a different form. I would like to use that question in this opportunity to thank my students. I take it that their presence here means that they have forgiven me for requiring them to read the assigned text in the first week and take an exam on it.
Wow.
That seems to be too much, but it was for a purpose. And that is so that we could get past who did what to whom when as history and learn to think historically. And if they have suffered the person who thinks more historically, I would count that as a real accomplishment. And I thank those of you who are here in the audience who suffered through that course and somehow have found it in their heart reason to forgive me.
Must have been some wonderful conversations that came out of that. How about you, Dr. Berry? I didn't know about the math. That's so interesting. Try again.
No.
Okay.
Feedback. So I was a diligent student. I loved school, probably sort of irritatingly for some of my peers. But I will say that one of the things, and really always got a rush. I started out as a math major. I loved math in the kind of poetic sense, but then when I got to college, I actually took a class called Origins of American Culture by accident. Someone said, oh, let's just go check this out, and I went, and the first day they were lecturing on, the professor, John Butler, was lecturing on Africans from the Senegambia region in colonial South Carolina and how they brought rice cultivation techniques that were essential for South Carolina to survive, and I was hooked. But as a professor and also as a student of history, one of the things that has become clear to me is that many of the most brilliant people are not people who take to school as it's constructed, and so part of what I try to do in my writing, but also in the classroom, is make space for different kinds of imagination and brilliance to emerge. And I want to tell the stories. One of, person I wrote a biography of, Lorraine Hansberry, who was one of the greatest playwrights in American history, got a D in drama in high school. That to me is deeply instructive. Yeah, so good student, but I hope better professor.
Well, thank you for that. I think, I always try to ask something maybe no one has ever heard. So as you heard from Chuck, I am, fairly new to Alabama. I moved here in 2020, and it was a very interesting time to move cross-country. I'd been in California for 7 years before that, but I am from Maryland, and I now, after reading your book, I'm allowed to say that I'm from the South? Can I say that?
Yes.
I can say it. I can say that, but not everyone will agree with me.
No.
Okay. Well, we'll see. But yes, Alabama has been a different place, and telling people in California that you're about to move to the Deep South just got so many reactions, and that's something that you talk about in your book a lot. I wonder, now that you have, both from Alabama, very proud Alabamans, but thinking about some of the reactions that you've gotten living elsewhere. And, you write in your book about people who have said, how did you get here to Princeton or wherever you've been? I wonder about kind of the wildest thing that you've heard. One for me, recently I was in Maryland. I was eating with my parents at a restaurant in Baltimore, and my mom told the owner of the restaurant, my daughter's up here visiting from Birmingham. And he said, ew. And this was like an older black man. I was just like, what are you even basing this on? Ew. And he was just like, I've never known anyone to voluntarily move to Alabama. And I was like, okay, well, I really like it. What do you know about it? Have you been there? And so I wonder, what are some of the wildest things that you've heard, wildest reactions?
I mean, similarly, one of my closest friends is from Maryland, and she said to me, oh, I would never go to the South, right? And I said, little do you know, you're from the South, right? But I think there are Souths plural, which is one of the instructive elements. I will say my own experience having moved to Boston at Cambridge, Massachusetts as a small child. One of the things when I tell people that before writing the book, they would say, oh, that contrast must have been extraordinary, like the progressive New England versus being from the Deep South. And what I tell them is, moving to Cambridge in the 70s was right after the busing crisis. And so that was the place I heard racial slurs. That was the place a bottle was thrown at our car when we wound up in the wrong side of town. Birmingham had already undergone its transformation, its confrontation with the violence of its past, and the transformation of the city through the will of Black Americans and their allies. And so I think for me, the wildest thing is that people think that there is something unique about the region in terms of the difficulty of its both past and present, when in fact it actually has always been the leader of transformation of the nation largely.
Dr. Mathews, how about you? Conversations about being from Alabama.
I'll tell you a story.
Yes.
We moved, Mary and I, to Dayton, Ohio. Nice place, nice people. But people have stereotypical views, and you can argue with them, but that will just increase their perception that their stereotypes are real. So when we moved and were invited by these nice people to their homes, it was kind of be nice to a Southerner week. And I would introduce my wife as my cousin, which she is. And hopefully, after the shock subsided, they would be inclined to re-examine their own stereotypes. So that's my story about it.
Wow. I run a newsroom, and I have reporters who are based in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. So I do a lot of traveling throughout the region, and I try to really post a lot of things of the beauty of Alabama and the region. And one time I was going to Jackson for a trip, and I had a friend in New York say, "Oh wow, be careful. You're going to Mississippi." And I was like, "What am I? You be careful. You're in New York. What am I supposed to? What do you think is going to happen?" So really a lot of questions there. Also, I moved and I went to the beach, went down to Gulf Shores like my first month here, and posted pictures from that, and people said, "There's a beach in Alabama?" And meanwhile, I'm going to run something called the Gulf States Newsroom. So I was like, I want you all to just think about it, son. Think about it, look at a map. But one of the reasons that Birmingham really has come to feel like home to me is because of a sense of community that I feel here, and I know that is a big part of your work and things that you think about a lot in the intersections of history and democracy. How do you define community, Dr. Mathews?
Community. I have a friend, we've talked back and forth for years, Ralph Nader. Ralph, was the critic of the automobile industry, and wrote a book on the subject, Unsafe at Any Speed. And it was not popular in states like Ohio because one of the things they do is make cars, and this was not good for business. But Ralph succeeded, following politics as usual. And he was so enamored with it, he ran for president about 3 or 4 times. I mean, he was like the unstoppable bunny in that ad about... But he called me the other day. We talked over Ralph is Washington-oriented. That's where he got it. But he said he wanted to talk because Washington didn't work anymore. And he couldn't figure out how to get it to work because nobody listened. Very pessimistic about change. And he said that the conclusion that he'd come to was that Washington was not going to change itself. Simply was not going to change itself in any fundamental way. And so he had come to the conclusion that real change in the country had to come from the bottom up, beginning with the community. We're going to talk again when I get back to Ohio, Dayton. It's going to be a good conversation because Ralph has come in the hard way to the conclusion that I think is instinctive in most people, that the community is the place where change has to begin if it's going to last more than the cycle of a federal policy. So that's my story about Ralph Nader.
What are your thoughts on community?
So, I think people often have a sort of casual definition of community, just meaning those who live or work in proximity. I think there's 2 elements to communities functioning effectively, and those are trust and also respect, that communities function well when there is a basis for mutual trust and a recognition of the dignity of every member of the community. And so when I think, for example, of the history of the civil rights movement, oftentimes the way that it is taught sort of begins with the action, but not the something indispensable for the actions to take place. And the something indispensable were communities where people trusted each other enough to step out with extraordinary courage, right? That they knew that there was somebody else who was going to be behind them, alongside them. And so, I think absolutely consistently with what Dr. Mathews has said, that if we are thinking about transformation today, that it requires communities that function effectively, right? That we don't just look to elected officials or those who are in positions of power, but we ask ourselves, what do we demand of those who are in positions of power? What do we expect of them, and how do we actually execute on our end what is necessary for achieving our country, as the great James Baldwin put it. Yeah.
One thing that strikes me is that, there are a lot of communities that are deeply fractured, and that there are people who, can feel very isolated based on where they live or work, and that key component of listening isn't always happening. I wonder your thoughts on, if we know that this is a key component, but this may not really be the way of thinking for people who hold the most power. How do we get there? How do we fix that disconnect? Whichever one of you wants to jump in.
Well, what if it wasn't a problem? The word community originally meant to care with or to share with. If you look up the word in the dictionary, I had a great uncle who wrote dictionaries, so I had to read a lot of dictionaries.
Wow.
And every word carries with it a history. It's a history, Odessa. And that word, history, is a history of the recognition by our most ancient ancestors that to survive, just to stay alive, required people to come together beyond just families. And they had to have a word for that insight. And the word they chose was community. So there you have it. I will not read the rest of the dictionary.
I'm now just thinking about writing dictionaries as a career, and wow, just a lot of questions. Thoughts on kind of what else could happen to enrich or heal communities?
Yeah, I think you asked this question about listening, and it occurred to me that part of the difficulty with listening is people are uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, which is actually a necessary part of being in respectful community, right? And so, at minimum, I think what's required is people get comfortable with hearing things that might be unsettling and actually examine why they're unsettling, right? And to be able, and to sit with the discomfort, right? I think especially now, I think there's two things. One, I think generally speaking, Americans really like innocence. We like to be innocent of any wrongdoing, right? Which is not a recipe for collective maturity. And that so both if we're listening deeply and we feel uncomfortable, often it's because we're unsure about whether or not we have been as virtuous as we claim to be. Right? And so, in order to, I think, get to healthier, more effective communities, we actually have to settle into the discomfort and settle into our fallibility and settle into the error not of the ways of the past, but often of the present, right? And then ask ourselves, how do I actually function in a way to be part of making, fashioning a society where we're closer to being in right relation, which means that we have to actually often give up some of what feels most comfortable, most puts us at ease. And so a lot is required of us on an individual level, much more than I think we certainly are often feel called to now, but that we're immediately comfortable with.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because at this event last year, one of the quotes I wrote down from Brian Stevenson and his very moving comments were, "I'm not against comfort, but if you want to do justice, you have to be willing to do things that are uncomfortable and inconvenient." And that was one of the lines that really stuck out to me. In thinking about the work that you've done, you both have books that came out pretty recently, and Dr. Mathews, in your book Together, one of the things that struck me about it is that it was something that was a working draft. Like, you wanted to give it to book clubs in different communities to get feedback on kind of the ideas that you put forward. What kind of response have you gotten over the past couple of years?
Well, the two of the books that I wrote that are not being used as doorstops, which is some measure of success, have one-word titles. And the title of the community book is Together. And the other book is With. And it conveys a very simple idea. We want government to work for us and sometimes on us, but what about with us? What about with us? And that's a fairly simple idea, but applying it is extremely difficult. And what I've been working on with some people who are here in this audience, Odessa being one, was to try to understand politics by going to the core of what it does. And politics is all about making choices. It's all about making choices. And what we would like the choices to be are in favor of what we like and what we want. But it never happens. We always disagree. Now, what's the solution to disagreement? Agreement? Sorry, folks, human beings are not capable of fully agreeing with anybody. Even in their own families, they will disagree. So, in making decisions, don't try to get agreement, because it's going to just bury too much that ought to be dealt with. I've been working with some of you on choice work. We got into it from influence of a guy named Cyrus Vance, who was in the State Department for a while, and a survey analyst, pollster named Dan Yakelovich. And Cy Vance, at the end of the day in Washington, if you're a cabinet secretary, you're going to get a stack of books like that. And they're going to say, tomorrow you have to make X decision. And here's option one, and if you do that, this wonderful thing will happen. But you'll lose your sense of taste. But here's another, you don't like that one? Here we got another choice for you, and you'll get this, but you'll lose that, and so on. Dan Yankelovich, George Gallup type was, I thought, better than George, actually. Both of them were on the Kettering board one time. And what Dan word is that the news media and scholars never tell people what their choices are. They tell them all about this and all about that, and they've got loads of facts. But they never have anything to say about the choices. So we began to think, what would happen if you took the insights from Cyrus Vance and the insights from Dan Yankelovich, and you did a series of choice books for everybody. So that began what were called the National Issues Forum. There's a version of it here in Alabama, in the center in Montevallo. They do a series of Alabama Issues Forums. But the idea is not to come to an agreement. It's to come to understand the argument you like least. The argument you like least, and give it a fair hearing. Now, if you do that, you won't agree, which is unnatural. Human beings were not built to agree. What you come to is a practical way to move forward on this problem, even if we don't fully agree. That's what the Alabama Issues Forums is all about. We've been doing those forums for about 40 years now, and it's remarkable how people, if they commit themselves to listening to arguments they don't like and can make the best case for the worst argument, they come to understand the reality of political and civic life, and they come to understand a capacity within them. And we use the word deliberation for it. It's a nice Latin word. It really means to weigh carefully of the pound, de libra. The Greeks had a better word for it. Logos pro didaxonai. The talk we use to teach ourselves before we act, before we decide. That's an ancient truth. You can find a word for deliberation in every language that I've read. Why? Because it's the way we survive best.
The talk we use to teach ourselves before we decide. Wow. And it's not about finding what you like the most, what you like the least. That's really
what you can live with.
What you can live with.
Yeah.
I'm going to be taking some of these thoughts back to work. I wanted to ask, a similar question about South to America. Of course, many awards. One of the things I thought was really interesting about it was that it's also part of the Birmingham Reads Project and part of a citywide literacy project. I wonder have you gotten a lot of feedback from people in Birmingham, since that plays such a big role in the book?
Yes, of varying sorts. And I've got wonderful feedback from people in Birmingham, but I've also had some of my parents' friends in particular tell me that's actually not how that happened. Let me go back into just details, which is why I love the concept of the book as you said together. You talked about how Dr. Mathews referred to it as a working draft, but I sort of think that that's actually how we should approach books in general, that they should function most as invitations as opposed to final words. And invitations, I think, to deliberation. And I think, if nothing else, I'm proud of the fact South to America has generated conversations. I think, one of the virtues of democracy at best is one that it invites full participation, right? That's how it's supposed to function, right? That everybody has a voice and that we engage with each other. It is a doing rather than a destination. And so I think of, so the book is an artifact, but the reading of the book or the existence of in a world of ideas, there are so many books that are travels through the South, actually. And so it's entering into a conversation about how we name what this place is and hopefully how we name what this country is, which tells us something about how we name what the world is. So I'm mostly grateful that people have taken the time to read it and see themselves in it. That's been a really wonderful piece of the journey. Yeah.
Are there conversations you've had that have surprised you or have been particularly stuck with you?
Well, I'll tell you one that sticks with me because it was unusual. I had a Chinese American student last year who was reading the book. I don't assign my own books in my classes because you can't really, it's hard to criticize the professor. So I assign other people's books. But she was reading the book and she came to class at one day after class to talk to me, and she said she told her grandparents about it, and who had immigrated from China, and that they had never told her about their lives in Mississippi. And so she said in talking to them about the book, they began to tell her the full story about how they migrated to Mississippi, what their experience was like. And it was this chapter of her family's history that was unknown. And so it was surprising, even though I know about the long history of Chinese Americans in Mississippi, but just because it actually became a vehicle for a family connection. Yeah, that was precious.
Wow, yeah, that's really, really special. Dr. Mathews, in reading about you and your life and your work, in almost every, short bio, no matter how short it is, there's usually an emphasis on things that you did in your early 30s. Becoming the youngest president of Alabama, one of the youngest cabinet members. Since you've come, a ways since then, you're a bit older now, just a little bit. How do you think back about those times? Do those feel like some of the most remarkable things that you've done?
What was remarkable about the 60s and the 70s, this was a time of real serious conflict in the country. The country's badly divided now. The only thing people agree to is that we're too divided. It's an unnatural state, just as agreement is an unnatural state. And in the 70s, the university is really indebted to a lot of people that I see in the audience. What about Dale Wallace? Is Dale here? There he is, yeah. He puts his hand to his chin, which makes him look much more authoritative as a lawyer. And I learned a lot from the students in that generation. Now, they'd seen their older brothers and sisters in the 60s just tear the place up. And it didn't change very much. It didn't change a lot. So, like the second child in the family, they learned from watching the first one, okay? And the first one got into a lot of trouble. So the 70s generation was politically more astute. And I learned a lot from them about how they dealt with, we had court orders and the university was desegregated legally, but it was not integrated. If your skin tones were a bit on the dark side and you walk in, you didn't see anybody else except just a handful in the class. Within 10 years, less than 10 years, 10% of the population was African American. The university had more African Americans than all of the Ivy League colleges put together. Okay. And how did they do that? That's Dale Wallace's story. That's the story of the people who are in this audience. And they did remarkable things. I think the most remarkable thing was that they went off campus. Wanda Minor, I hope, is here somewhere. There's Wanda. From the rural part of the state, high birth rates. And so I said to him, you know, the university's got problems you ought to work on solving, but the real challenge is out in the state. Are you going to sit here in Tuscaloosa and just think about it? Get out there and do something. And Wanda led the charge. Her area of the state was really plagued with infant mortality to teenagers. And so she mounted a project that went on for, I don't know, Wanda, how long. Kids going out and working in the rural and impoverished areas of the state, black and white, with the problems that were in the state. And the university made the state its campus. It wasn't just the university in Alabama. It was trying to be the University of Alabama. And the people who did that are in this audience. So give them a hand.
It's so wonderful to hear you talk about community, and it's very real how much of a community you have, you know, in this room. As we close, I just want to ask each of you about, you know, what this honor being here today means to you. You know, from both of your introductions, many awards, many accolades, many accomplishments. Thinking about the humanities and the state that you call home, what does it mean to be honored today? As a recent Genius, MacArthur Genius Award winner.
I'm a crybaby, so I'm going to not cry. It really, it means the world to me. I have traveled far and been educated at lots of fancy places, but everything that I have carried with me that has enabled me to move with integrity and diligence and rigor and seriousness and deep love of people, which is, you know, the heart of humanities, humanitas, comes from this soil and my family. You know, the one thing, every time I get an award, the one thing I wish more than anything is that my grandmother was here, because she is the person who most deeply instilled all of the values and the commitment to reading every day and the commitment to being decent even as I aspire to various things. So it means so much. You know, there's nothing in the world like being celebrated at home.
And how about for you? One last story? Do you have a story about what this means to you?
A lot of people think I'm crazy. But thanks to this award, they cannot prove it.
Is that it? Oh my God. Well, congratulations. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Mathews. Thank you, Imani. Congratulations. Thank you. As they leave the stage, I want to remind you that Imani has graciously agreed to stay with us for a while after the event here to sign books and talk to people. And we're going to pivot really quickly here for some other important awards. And a little bit about how you can help Alabama's teachers. Our first recognition, let me introduce a leader whose organization is doing so much for women and for all of us in Alabama. She's joined by one of Alabama Humanities board members who also has a passion for making Alabama better for all. They'll award our Wayne Greenhaw Service to the Humanities Award. The award recognizes the extraordinary commitment to the humanities in Alabama made by an individual working with and alongside the Alabama Humanities Alliance. Please welcome presenters Melanie Bridgeforth, President of the Women's Foundation of Alabama, and Brett Schaefer, Senior Vice President and Head of Community Relations at Regions Bank. We have a traffic jam here.
It is cozy. Thank you, Chuck. Good afternoon. What a joy to be here, not only because of the fascinating conversation that just took place, or because I get to stand beside this one, Brett Schaefer, whom I don't get to spend nearly enough time with. No, today is also special for me because I have the pleasure of recognizing an extraordinary Alabama leader, our friend, our inspiration, LaWanna Bradford. LaWanna was among the first to welcome me to this community when I came to the helm of the foundation. She invited me over to the Regions dining room for lunch. We laughed, we shared our hopes and dreams. I may have gone on a rant. I learned her love of family and community. And when our time came to a close, she uttered 4 simple words: "You have my support." And she's been by my side ever since. So if you know anything about the Women's Fund of Greater Birmingham's transformation into a statewide philanthropic legislative powerhouse for gender equity, which we now call the Women's Foundation of Alabama, then you've witnessed the passion and the influence of LaWanna Bradford. You've witnessed what 4 words, "you have my support," can make possible. So you see, LaWanna's work exemplifies what the Greenhaw Service to the Humanities Award is all about. She's a longtime and influential supporter of the humanities in our state. She is a past board member of the Alabama Humanities Alliance and a passionate advocate for AHA's history programs. And for those who attended the 2022 Colloquium in Montgomery, you know her talents also extend to a top-notch MC. She has brought the humanities in her day job as a senior vice president at Regions Bank. She leads her corporate community through an annual History in Motion reception honoring history makers in Alabama. Honorees include Judge Vanzetta Penn McPherson, Representative John Lewis, and someone we just heard from, Miss Odessa Woolfolk. LaWanna, you walk amongst giants. Thank you for your passion, your dedication, your heart. Thank you for what you mean to the Alabama humanities and to our state. Brett?
No pressure, right? First of all, I'm selfishly very excited to just stand here and tell you that LaWanna Bradford is my dear friend and confidant, and it's just an honor just to be in that space. Now, I'm a board member, I'm LaWanna's co-worker at Regions, but I want to speak to you as a beneficiary of LaWanna's humanity. I met LaWanna a decade ago. I was a very fresh, more than a decade ago, I was a very fresh baby banker, and LaWanna was a very big deal, an executive. So much of an executive that she was on the cover of American Banker magazine next to our CEO in a bright red blazer, arms folded, power stanced, right? And so I don't think I could afford a blazer back then. So needless to say, I was very impressed with Lawana. We got to work on a community project together. And after that, something really miraculous happened. Lawana sought me out. I don't know why she did, but she did. And she didn't summon me to her. She came to me, and she came to me again, and she came to me again, and she did something that Kathy Randall mentioned. She listened to me. She found out what was important to me. She helped me realize how to achieve that and hold me accountable to that. And thankfully, back then, I was smart enough to pay attention to Lawana. And so she's been my mentor. She never said she was going to be my mentor, and talk is cheap, but it's exactly what she did. And while I'm still no, American banker, power stance, Lawana Bradford yet. In fact, Lawana saved a seat for me at her table. It's not where I was supposed to sit. And as the presenters and as the speakers were talking, Lawana would look at me, and I know what she was saying. She's saying, "Did you hear what they just said? I've been trying to tell you about that. Did you listen? We're going to talk about that later." And so I like to think Lawana was successful. She did help me reach my dream job on her team at Regions Bank. She did introduce me to this very board. We're not recognizing Lawana today because she mentored me and Melanie, although we are a bit of a handful, and it probably is award-worthy. We are recognizing Lawana for what she's done for many of you in this room, that very same thing. But also, as a consequence of who Lawana is, who she was, when she was, how she was, she's really cleared a path and opened doors that have never been opened by someone that looks like her, and she's broken glass ceilings for someone who looks like her. And in doing that work, she has made all the difference in all of our lives here in Alabama and in Birmingham, Alabama, consequently clearing a path for us to be who we are, to bring our full selves to work, to sit at the table and to provide our contribution. And that might not be something she set out to do, but it's a real positive consequences of who she is and why she's getting this award today. So on behalf of the board and your colleagues and your loving family and your dear friends, we're so proud and happy to recognize you. Melanie.
Wow, Brett. I know who I'm going to have do my speech. Get Brett. So it is our honor, Lawana. Please join us to accept the 2023 Wayne Grenhaw Service to the Humanities Award.
Okay. Dr. Perry said she was a crybaby. I didn't think I was. But my two friends, Melanie and Brett, whom I admire, kind of have me a little choked up. But I'll pull it together. To the Board of Directors of the Alabama Humanities Alliance, to Chuck Holmes, the Executive Director, and your amazing team, to my Regents family, and my personal family and friends, and to all of you in attendance, thank you for being here. This is indeed a wonderful event to share the stage with Dr. Perry and Dr. Mathews, and to hear your stories, Dr. Mathews. I'm going to walk away with some good tidbits. The Alabama Humanities Alliance, thank you for thinking of me for such a prestigious award. the Wayne Greenhaw Service of the Humanities Award. You never set out to be recognized in that way. You just kind of do what you do. And as you shared, Dr. Perry, to have that honor come from home is very special. During my time serving on the board of AHA, I had the opportunity to vote on phenomenal people to receive this award. As I think of other recipients, including Judge Sally Greenhaw, Lee Sintel, Reggie Hammer, and my friend Trey Granger, I am extremely honored and appreciative to now be counted among such a dynamic group of honorees. What an amazing feeling. Wayne Greenhaw was an outstanding humanitarian, and this award, which is a memorial tribute to him and his works, makes receiving it very, very special. The Alabama Humanities Alliance team believes our state is better when we are engaged in storytelling and civic purposes, and so do I. Building alliances to educate, inform, share cultural experiences, and learn from our history to build a stronger tomorrow matters. Understanding and appreciating human values and the unique ability of the human spirit to express itself. That helps us to really understand the world that we live in, and it provides us tools to imagine a beautiful future that we put in place for our children. We must continue to advocate for impactful storytelling and meaningful civic engagement in our communities and our state. If you haven't taken time to attend some of the other events that the AHA provides across this state, I would encourage you to look at their website and get engaged. You definitely will be glad that you did, because as you've heard, community matters. Community is us. Community is what we do. Community is how we come together. And I say thank you to the AHA for giving me this opportunity, and I am thrilled to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Luana. What lovely words. Ooh, you're gonna make me cry, seriously, talking about the organization that way. Two final awards in our program. We want to recognize the invaluable support for the Alabama Humanities by one company and one individual. I'd like to invite Alabama Humanities Board Chair Ed Mizell to come up. Ed?
What a terrific day. Thank everyone for being here. Today is a day for this organization. It's about celebration. It's about recognition. It's about appreciation. And it's about gratitude. And we've talked about community. We've talked about a sense of community. But there's an organization in our community that has a culture of giving back and has been very visible in their efforts to do so. And we want to recognize the corporate contributors in a very meaningful way with a new award, Champions of the Humanities. And if you've been to events in this city over the last few years, the nonprofit part of our world and our community benefits greatly from an organization that we all know, we all appreciate, and we all want to recognize today, Medical Properties Trust. And to receive their award today is Senior Vice President of Operations, Rosa Hooper. Rosa, can you come up, please?
I'm pleased to accept this award on behalf of Medical Properties Trust. We are honored to be recognized by the Alabama Humanities Alliance. We're so proud of the work that you all do in the community to build a stronger community, more united community for Alabamians for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosa. And MPT's logo is plastered everywhere, and we're happy to have it on our event as well. It means a lot. All right, the big finale. We're bringing this home, and we're going to deliver an award to a man who has done so very much for this organization and whose tireless work over the years has helped make the Alabama Humanity what it is in now our 49th year. To bestow the honor, I'd like to invite Troy University's Janice Hawkins, a longtime AHA board member, to the stage. Janice and Jack Hawkins, Jack's also a former board member, work hard on behalf of our organization, and Janice, along with Jonathan Porter, is a co-chair of today's event. Janice?
Thank you, Chuck. It's a day to be proud of our association with this wonderful organization. You mentioned Jack. I'm supposed to have a man up here with me, but he's not here, and he asked me to tell you all that he really wanted to be here to honor somebody that he loves. But he's in Vietnam, speaking of differences in the 60s and 70s, Dr. Mathews, and he is over there for 4 Troy University graduations, as well as trying to open a new program over there. So don't worry, he's called me a bunch of times from Vietnam to tell me what I should say today. So when our board considered the award for Champions of the Humanities for an individual, there's so many people that would have qualified for this that we would have been proud of, but one stood out among the others. My wonderful, wonderful, beloved friend, Edgar Weldon. Edgar's devotion to great causes in this state are legendary. In business, in education, and sports, I think his greatest love. Just think of how many people have been inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, and what a wonderful, wonderful legacy this is. His contributions and his generosity are immense, but here's the real reason I think Edgar got this award. He exemplifies the best of the humanities, and I'd like to take a personal privilege here to tell you what our daughter, our youngest daughter, Kelly, who admires and loves Edgar so much, I asked her what she would say in describing Edgar, and she didn't miss a beat. She said, "He makes every person feel seen and heard, no matter their station in life, and he gives so selflessly." If that's not a good description of a humanitarian, I don't think I've ever heard one. I hope we all know, and I love telling people about the humanities and the things that we do. Unfortunately, we don't do these huge, broad-scale things that get lots of attention, but we do so much good in this state. And one of the things that I am the most proud of is one that Edgar began over 20 years ago and is solely responsible for: the Riley Scholarships, named in honor of Janice Riley, who was not only an outstanding teacher, but daughter of then Governor Bob Riley and First Lady Patsy Riley. Is Patsy here with us today? Patsy's here with us today. Thank you, thank you. Patsy, thank you for being here. We love you, and we love this scholarship supports Alabama teachers who are as passionate about education as your Janice was. And we just thank you and bless you for that. Over the past 20 years, we've awarded more than 100 Riley scholarships, more than $100,000 to kindergarten through 8 teachers to do these innovative, wonderful programs, projects that probably would not have happened if not for this support. Many of you have been here in past years to hear about these innovative ideas in classrooms, and we have asked Mr. Willie Davis to be here today with us. He received one of the 4 awards given last year for the classroom, and we thought it would be good just to hear a very brief statement about the kind of thing that is being done. Willie, yes.
Thank you for that warm welcome. I'm grateful to be here today, and I'm thankful to the Alabama Humanities Alliance and Mr. Edgar Welding for creating this scholarship program. In my classroom, I used the funding to implement a project called Let's Explore the World Together. The idea was to introduce the world beyond Bessemer to our students and share about different cultures, traditions, and ways of life around the globe. My fellow kindergarten teachers and I hosted regular exploration days. We bought new multicultural books, food from different cultures, and creative learning resources. Our students traveled the globe right from their classroom. This project aligned with Alabama Course of Study standards. It cultivated students' curiosity and gave them empathy and kinship with others who may not be like them. This is so important to me because when we understand and appreciate differences, we begin to break down barriers and dispel stereotypes. I appreciate how so many in this room work to help all Alabamians see the humanity in each other. As a kindergarten teacher, I know we can't start early enough. Thank you again for inviting me to share, and thank you for your support of these scholarships that benefit Alabama's teachers and students. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, and every grant that we review is that exciting and that different. So it's just a wonderful opportunity. So Edgar Weldon championed this program, funded it, and wanted no credit for it. But today, Edgar, we're giving you credit whether you want it or not. So. In addition to the Champions of the Humanities Award, we're expanding the scholarship program and creating a new fund named after you. This will be known as the W. Edgar Weldon Fund for Education in memory of Janice Riley. It's our goal to raise the $100,000 for the scholarship, and most of you understand that when you have that amount of money, Brett, right, and you invest it, then you use the principal to give these scholarships in following years. So we're so grateful to those of you that have already given. We say thank you. We appreciate it so much. To those of you who will contribute in the future, we say thank you. So Edgar, thank you to you and your family who have been very supportive of this and of you being here today, and I hope it was a surprise. They asked that it be a surprise. So thank you to your family and friends who helped with this. This is our best attempt, and it's inadequate to say thank you, to honor you, and tell you that we love you. You know I love you. Thank you.
Janice is going to deliver that award in person at the table. You don't see Edgar. It's just like room service. You don't even have to get up. You just comes to you. And I would like to point out to Mr. Davis, he may or may, yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. point out to Mr. Davis, he may or may not know this, but you've won the scholarship again this year. So congratulations. And not just because you agreed to be here today. It was because of the project, I promise. Listen, thank you all for being here and supporting us. We believe our work is especially important in these times. Your support helps make Alabama smarter and make Alabamians more connected to each other. A bit of housekeeping, as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Perry will be out in the lobby to sign books and greet people. For those of you who are taking the bus to tour the Wallace House, the bus will depart from the courtyard around 1:45. Doesn't give you much time. I'm told you may want to take a restroom break before you're getting on the bus. It's about an hour drive down to Harpersville. And once again, I'd like to thank our presenting sponsors, Regions Bank, Medical Properties Trust, and Alabama Power for their support, along with our other corporate, media, and event sponsors, and all of you here. Next year, as has been mentioned, is our 50th anniversary. We'll celebrate. We've got big plans for the colloquium, so stay engaged with us, stay tuned, and we hope we see you this time next year. Thank you.